beyond that, the next big transition in my life was when she died. I was left alone in a big house in a small town in New Jersey, and although I had friends, it was just not the same, and it was very hard for me to find a fulfilling life there. I was still working as a speech pathologist, but I was not happy. Again, I felt incomplete. I was always a yoga person. I did a lot of yoga, and one day I took 2 classes in a row. It was a rainy, miserable day, and I decided I really needed to work out. I took 2 classes, came home, and felt very achy. I took a hot bath, I got into bed, and the next morning I could not get out of bed. I was in such agonizing pain that I cried. I called the doctor. I couldn't even get into my car and drive to the doctor. Fortunately, he's a friend of mine, and he came over and we talked, and he said, "Sounds like you've got acute onset of rheumatoid arthritis." I said, "It's ridiculous. I've never had anything like it in my life. How could that be?" Well, he did some tests, and he made an appointment with a rheumatologist. And indeed, I did come down with something called polymyalgia rheumatica, which is a form of rheumatoid arthritis. It affects the upper part of the body for the most part. The hands, the shoulders, the arms, back, and the extremities, the feet. It was severe. And I went from being a person who was never ill, never took medication, to somebody who was totally dependent on medication to relieve the pain and so that I could function. This onset of illness made me realize that my days were not infinite, that we all have numbered days, and I needed to do something to make whatever healthy time I had fulfilling and gratifying. So what I did was recover from this. I had medication that helped me recover, and I spoke to people about moving back to New York. Living in New York was something that Grace and I had talked about. We had hoped to retire to New York. I always wanted to be in the city. I was born and raised in the city. I loved the city, everything it had to offer. And I just felt that there would be so many more opportunities there for somebody like me, who eventually would not be able to drive, eventually would be more handicapped. And I thought, well, there's 10 restaurants on every block, so I could always find something to eat. There's a movie theater all over the place, so I would always love movies and be able to go to the movies. There's theater, there's concerts, there's everything that I love is available. And I decided that I would do that. So the next transition was moving from this lovely home in a small town in New Jersey to a tiny little studio apartment in the big city of New York. I got a little studio apartment because it was, well, I say it was something I could afford, but it really wasn't. Even that I could not afford. But in the state that I was in, I decided that even if I could afford it for only a couple of years, I had to do it. I had to make the change. I had to see if being in New York would improve my life, would embellish my life, would make me feel more mobile, would make me feel less dependent. And it did. It did all of those things. I came to New York knowing nobody. I was introduced to one woman She and I became very good friends, and through different circumstances I met some other people, but I never really met people and formed strong bonds as I did when I was younger with the people that I really grew up with in New Jersey. I maintained those friendships. I still have those friends. But the transition from being in a little town, or you might say a big fish in a little town, to practically nobody in the Big Apple was a big, big, big move.